Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I do weekly movie or series reviews, and I'm also working through an MCU retrospective series that I release in between reviews, so you can watch out for that as well. I'm really excited to talk about this series today in particular, but before we get started, whether you're new or returning, and you like the content I'm putting out, please take a second to like, share, comment, subscribe, and tell a friend. With that being said, let's dive into Fargo Season 5. I want to start today's review with a question. How many people do you know that actually watch Fargo? I know in my life the answer is shockingly low. I was talking with a friend a few months ago, and we were both raving about the newest season. And I mentioned to him that he was the only other person I knew that actually watches this series, which is absolutely insane to think about. Whenever Fargo is actually airing on TV, it always has extremely high ratings, and almost every season has received overwhelmingly positive reviews by critics and the audience alike. Yet, I know one, maybe two other people in my life who actually watch it. I honestly feel bad for anybody who isn't watching it because you're missing out. I've said it 100 times and I'm going to repeat it here. Fargo might be the most consistently good series on TV, and this season was no different. In fact, I think it's one of my favorites. Okay, maybe I exaggerated a bit, but this season was a blast. I by no means dislike Season 4, though I understood the frustrations. I think overall it was an enjoyable season. It definitely stretched itself thin with its multitude of storylines, creating what I would consider the weakest of the 5 seasons. I think getting back to the basics of what makes Fargo, Fargo is what Season 5 excels at. It's refreshing. Right from the jump, we kick this season off with a home invasion, kidnapping plot that harkens back to the original film, but with a twist. We find out quickly that Dorothy Lyon, played by Juno Temple, our main character, is not the Midwestern housewife to be trifled with. She gives the intruders a fight they weren't expecting, a fight they weren't prepared for. Through the next few episodes, we discover Dorothy's true past as the victim of abuse by her estranged husband, corrupt Sheriff Roy Tillman, played by John Hamm. We follow Dorothy and Roy along their paths to an inevitable confrontation that embroils their community and the people closest to them. The plot is pretty straightforward, and while sometimes it may seem too familiar to Season 1, or even the Coen brothers' groundbreaking film, it is different enough to overlook. The way the storylines intertwine with each other is fascinating and exhilarating, but the aspect of this season that really brings it home for me are its characters. Maybe the most interesting bunch we've gotten so far. The cast of this season is easily one of my favorites. Juno Temple is perfect casting as our unassuming housewife, Dorothy Lyon. The way she plays this character with such natural pleasantries as she masquerades as an innocent mother living a normal middle-class life, only to then flip like a switch into this ferocious, tactical survivalist, is inspiring. She catches you so off guard because of her size, and I know some people might find it a little unbelievable that a woman of her stature could put up such a fight as she does over the course of this series, and that would probably be true if a lesser actor was cast. But Temple knocks it out of the park. Every part of her character, her struggle, her MacGyver-like instincts, and the normal caricature that she portrays, you buy all of it. Down to the final showdown with Roy, where he underestimates her once again, only to be outmaneuvered at the last moment. She may not get the pleasure of putting him into the ground, but her actions lead to his ultimate fate behind a prison gate. Dorothy isn't the only character that shines. In fact, just about every character this season gets their moment, but not as much as Roy. John Hamm is incredible in this role. But who are we kidding? It's John Hamm, he's great in everything. I'll never understand why John Hamm isn't in more mainstream films. Just about everything he's in, he crushes it. And that holds true in Fargo Season 5, as he disappears into the mind of Sheriff Roy Tillman. Roy is our aforementioned villain of this season, an intimidating lawman who patrols his county his own way. Somewhat of a religious zealot as he abides by a lifestyle set forth by the preachings of the Old Testament. He believes in total freedom from oppressive and wasteful governmental structures, including the FBI. He believes that a man has certain guarantees in life, a few of those being that a woman shall provide for their man at all times and that he has the right to lay his hands on his spouse when he sees fit. He is, without mincing words, a piece of shit. And you hate every minute he's on screen, but god damn it, it's John Hamm and he looks good doing it. You feel his imposing presence every time he's on screen. You get nervous as you watch him move around the screen, believing at any moment that this guy could snap. And even though, in the end, he gets his much-deserved reckoning, you can't help but wish for more time with Roy Tillman. He might be my favorite villain in this series so far. The rest of this cast is rounded out by a collection of compelling characters, portrayed by equally compelling actors. Sam Perel plays Ulla Munk, this season's mysterious and eccentric hitman. This character archetype is a staple of this series, and I have to say, Munk is one of the most interesting ones. A man who has a peculiar past and seems to be far older than anyone knows. A lethal criminal that lives by a specific code of ethics, who believes vehemently that debts must be paid at all cost. Like Roy, anytime he's on screen, you feel his presence. You feel uneasy as he moseys about a scene, as you never know what he's going to do next. After being done wrong by Roy, he returns for vengeance, a debt to be paid. He's cursed and broken, and in the end, after obtaining his retribution toward Roy and his kin, he turns his sights towards Dorothy, as she owes him for his earlier failed kidnapping attempt at Roy's direction, only for Dorothy to ultimately change his heart and his mind. And his arc is a joy to watch. Lamorne Morris, from New Girl fame, plays Whit Farr, the quintessential hero of our story. A by-the-book, kind-hearted state trooper who comes upon Dorothy by happenstance, witnessing her escape her captors, drawing him into conflict with Roy, his son Gator, and Munk as he vows to protect Dorothy and ultimately rescue her from Roy's clutches. Morris plays this character with such genuine compassion that when he meets his demise at the hands of Roy in an attempt to bring him to justice, it's gut-wrenching. Your heart breaks watching him take his last breath, knowing that all he wanted to do was something good. Joe Keery's Gator is perhaps the most sympathetic character this season. Keery plays Roy's disappointing son and deputy, Gator. Gator wants only to impress his father and make him proud, but he continues to botch every task that his father appoints to him, digging him and Roy deeper into conflict with Dorothy, Farr, and Munk, and even the FBI. You hate him initially, but you learn to care and root for him, praying for him to overcome the hold his father has over him. This becomes even more evident as Munk gouges his eyes out as payment for the betrayal that Roy committed. In the final episode, as he's left blindly feeling his way across the Tillman property, just begging for someone to rescue him, not only from his current predicament, but also from his life with Roy, you pity every second of it, only to find solace in the fact that Gator finally finds the courage to turn on his father. Now, I don't have time to discuss the rest of the cast. I could go on and on about them, but they're all great. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Rika Murjani, Dave Foley. The most surprising of them all is David Rysdale as Dorothy's current husband, Wayne. I really wasn't familiar with his work before this season, but he is riveting. Like the first 4 seasons, the 5th installment of Fargo is just as visually appealing as the rest. And as I stated before, I enjoyed season 4, but there's just something about the cold, stark suburbs and backcountry of Minnesota and the Dakotas that is so visually addicting. It just feels like a return to form for this show, and the cinematography and set design that accompanies it is just as impeccable. My favorite being the shot of Gator wandering across Roy's compound as fog encapsulates the property. And the directing and Noah Hawley's continued love for his series in its source material just elevates the show even further. This may be his best work since season 1, and you can tell how much he cares for these characters and their journeys. This show continues to shine in every aspect. The writing, the directing, the imagery, the characters. They all remain a constant of exceptional television. Holly is at a top form this season, as is all the actors, and I don't feel like this show gets the credit or notoriety that it deserves, and it's a damn shame because it is exceptionally good. So one last question. Who isn't watching this show? Are you? If not, why? Because I promise you, you're sorely missing out.